What's up, boys and girls, Lambo here, and today I'm coming at you with another Pepega Tuesday video. We're gonna have two ZVPs, one against a Cannonrush, one late game. Then we're gonna have a ZVZ and Roach versus Roach, and a ZVT with Muta, Ling, Bane against Bio. You can scroll through the bottom to see when exactly which one is. They're gonna be in this order. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Also, you guys can stop now with the very funny comments about me not knowing the chroma key filter and how it works, because my new lights have finally arrived, so I can finally properly use the green screen behind me. So I was not too dumb to know how it works, but finally my lights arrive, finally I have good lighting and I can properly use the green screen. I can even still perfect the options a little bit, I feel like, but I hope you guys enjoyed the little bit of a better stream / YouTube quality that I have from now on. And let's get straight to it. Alright, so the very first replay is from Dorilol. And he said he threw in the end 4.4k Zerg ZVP. I don't know why, but we're mostly only getting ZVP replays, because apparently everybody is struggling with Protoss. So I apologize for that, anyone who's watching on YouTube and he wants to figure out other matchups. But apparently for my subscribers, only ZVP is a problem. They assured me that that's the only matchup they lose. I'm sure that's the case. So we're looking at our Blue Zerg river here. I'm gonna down the sound from the volume that I play in. Okay, good that you checked ahead of the making the hatchery. Your opponent's opening standard. Okay, cool. Okay, everything looking good so far. Not sure why you're making 4 queens. Wow, that was a terrible shade. that was just bad. So you're supposed to open with 3 queens at the start, and there's a reason for that. The reason is that you never want to float larva, which you're doing right here. You're floating 3 larva, which is very, very, very bad. These 2 should be drones. You all remain overlord, so all 3 of them should be drones. So you can make a 3rd queen in the main base if you want, that's fine by me, but don't start the 4th queen, you should be making drones right now. The way that Zerg early game works is always you try to just spend all your drones, or all your money on drones, and when you get extra minerals you start a hatchery, or when you get extra minerals you start an extra queen. Very rarely you want to float a lot of larva, ever. You kind of just want to get these 3 mineral lines saturated as early as possible in all 3 matchups. So yeah, you're floating 5 larvae at this moment. It is very bad. But not as bad as this shade. This shade was atrocious. Also, if you guys ever play, or if you guys ever struggle against people that just send their first 2 adepts across, you can just stay on the map with 1 or 2 Zerglings and then run in. After the first adept leaves, I think this will not only give you a lot of free scouts, but also it will force the second adept to stay at home, because it's going to try clearing up the Ling. You can also try to run in multiple Lings after the second adept is out if you know your opponent is going to do that, and you're going to get a lot of value if you have the multitasking to control the Zerglings. So if you ever struggle with the adept run buys, this is one clever way of punishing the Protoss that tries to go for it. He's going Oracle first. The classic 44 out of 44 supply block. You should have 2 queens in your main and 2 in a natural. You have 0 vision, so your Zerglings should be scouting for 3rd base, should be scouting ahead here. If there's more adepts in the base, should be probably one here. I'm telling you, once the PVZ guide is coming out for early game, you guys will not choke like this anymore. Because you guys always you use the normal timings for Roach Warren and stuff, but you're floating larva because of macro and because the early game is not quite as clean. So then you should probably make your Roach Warren a little bit later, hoping that your opponents also will have worse build orders. Especially like Stargate follow-ups. I don't think, like, if you had known that this was a 4-minute third, On your level, for sure, you can hold everything with a Roach point like 440. Although I would suggest 430 always, so you don't need to actually think. I think the less you guys have to think, the easier it is for you. That's why 2 Stargate Void Ray is so good, because you don't really need to react too much as a Protoss player. It's also the reason why Zerg was so strong when the 2 Hydra upgrades were in one and we could play early Hydra against anything. That's why Laser was so successful, for example. And literally brainless, just decide to make... if you can go for the same thing over and over again, it's very easy. So you finished 1 spore too many. I don't think you actually ever need 3 spores that early. So sentries. Okay, now here comes the scout. Yeah, you're already behind because your early game wasn't great, but it's not terrible or anything. Game is not over by any means. Double upgrade Roach Hydra. I assume you want to play late game. Your opponent is copying Zest with his bank. Double Lurker then. That's actually not very good against Protoss. Because then you're just not gonna have a lot of Lurkers with your initial attack. But it's... yeah, it's fine. Especially if you're not... if the Protoss doesn't force you to make any Ravagers. With any move outs. Thank you. Alright. So... okay, so going 10 gas and then securing your bases. This is the correct way of playing this, especially if you want to go late game. If you want to go for a timing, I think the easiest way will be to go 88 drones as early as possible. Make spines here, make spines here. Make an extra round of queens, bring all the queens forward and attack. But you should already hit at this moment with lurker range. So you need an earlier infestation with earlier hive. If you want to play this style. Also never start your lurker dance before the hive. Lurkers without hive upgrades are useless anyways. I like that you wrote that you threw this game, but you're just behind the entire game as well. But this Protoss will need to throw first in order for this to make any sense. Right? Yeah, you might think you're ahead, but the Protoss actually is saving for bad times. You're not actually ahead. You need to... I honestly think you guys should never play this style ever. I think this is an awful style to learn. I think having a clear game plan makes it so much easier and will make your win rate spike. Like, you're like, okay, he's going for ground. If you want to play Lurker, if you like having Roaches, Hydras and Lurkers, because you can do that. Like you start with Roach Hydra, that's probably the reason why people like it. So you start with Roach Hydra, so you have the Hydra then in case there are Void Rays, if you're bad at scouting or something. And then you have the Roaches to be safe, right? So it feels natural that this is an easy unit composition, but it's not actually that easy of a unit composition later on. So if you play this, I would suggest that you guys get +2 missile, possibly +1 carapace, and then hit a timing with as many lurkers with range as early as possible. This should be your game plan. It shouldn't be to take a lot of bases with spine crawlers and then play late game. This will not be the most successful. If you want to play late game and that's fun for you, that's fine. Then that's completely fine. If you wanna play to win, then this is not it. Okay, your opponent. I don't think your opponent ever went below 2k minerals in like the last 4 minutes. Pretty dope. So now we're getting Vipers. Now we're basically just playing a late game. If you want to do run-bys, you need lurkers in the run-bys. Hydra run-bys are very weak, both against zealots and against cannons. So I don't know what that is. You also do not need 25 lurkers. Believe it or not, 25 lurkers not necessary against a carrier High Templar army. Not actually that useful either. half of those, at least half of those lurkers should be in Corruptor Viper. You could have had way more Corruptors already. But yeah, this is too many lurkers. I like the general way though you're playing late game. I think if you actually want to get good at late game, the best thing to do is just do nothing. But the way you should trade away these Hydras is not to run by the Hydras, but run by them with a couple of lurkers. Even though you might lose lurkers. I think the army composition that you should go for eventually if you want to take a fight is like between 10 and 12 lurkers, and then you can go Corruptor Viper. And that will do well for you. And then once they don't have ground units anymore, you can transition into Corruptor Viper Ultra. That will be the easiest late game composition to play. So this should be your goal. So you should just sit back, get all the upgrades, get a lot of drones, get a lot of static defense. And then eventually trade away the units that you don't want. Like, for example, if you had this Hydra still, you could have done like a 10 Hydra 4 Lurker attack here with an Overseer. And then your opponent would need to respond. And because you're 4.4k MMR and not Grandmaster, more often than not, your opponent would try a Warpin and then realize the Warpin just dies. And then either recall or like 1A his army here. And then you can run forward with the rest of the Lurkers without any complications. And maybe on the way there you can try abducting some units. This is how you trade away your units, because you can never die with this, ever. The moment you have Vipers, Spores, Corruptors, and Lurkers, you already can't die anymore, so... This is where you should... At this moment in time, you should try to just focus on trading and getting the perfect army composition. Which at this moment in time, your army composition is good, besides you don't have enough Corruptors. So it's a lot better than his. He still has a lot of Zealots and Icons, which are entirely useless against your composition. But for the love of God, just send half of the Lurkers here. Oh my god, Jesus. That's a free abduct if I've ever seen one. I tapped as very AFK during all of this. Also deselect your Vipers if you abduct. If you attack after the abduct. Alright. I'm still not sure exactly why you thought you were winning. And you through. This is like sometimes when I watch Sort of, and he plays this style and he thinks he's winning, but actually his opponent has a fucking 20k bank. God damn it, I said the F word, now I will get less ad revenue. Because I'm too lazy to bleep that stuff out. So now I might as well go on with it. You can fight that. Yeah, resource loss is very good for you. Now I can see why you think you were ahead, because he took a bunch of bad fights. I'm also not sure why you even have spores if you're not using them. Like, your lurkers are just running around here without any spores. And this is also not how you position lurkers. You want to have them in a car. Like, if your army should never lose against this. But if you have them all bunched up, they're much less effective. Also, there should be spore crawlers in here. Okay, let's see. Your opponent still has 8k minutes, and I'm just gonna call it right now. This was not as much of a throw as you thought it was. Okay, let me show you what you do here. So I like that you finally did these lurker run bys. I think you could have done those way earlier. The way you position your lurkers is in a line. Like this is not even that great. Usually I would do it like more like this. And then you move your spores forward, but that you should have done a long time ago. And then you can move the lurkers forward a little bit like this. Right. You have spines as well, so why not move those, especially because your opponent's army is basically only it's basically only icons, and this he can never break. Like, look at the difference that makes. Like, how is he gonna run in here with the icons? They're gonna bug around, they're just gonna be able to touch one lurker at a time. That's way better. Oh, do you have your Vipers on different hotkey? No, right? Those were just to reload. And yeah, so in general, if you actually want to play late game and if you want to get good at late game, what you did here is probably good. But there's not much that you did wrong here. You set up the lurkers wrong. You made too many lurkers at first. So you can fix that. But if your opponent stays on this army, the army that you made was perfect against it. If you're against Mass Archon, you can also get Infestors with Nura. But that's not necessary, actually. That just complicates things. I know Micron is very high for these Zerg late game armies. The one thing I wanted to show, now I already killed all the units, right? Let's say I want to kill this Corruptor. I will, from max range, abduct it, move back, and then, well, I control clicked it, so I can... I'm gonna do it another way then. So, I'm gonna abduct it, and then control click the Corruptors and do it like this, so the Vipers are not exposed. I'm gonna show this again. There's a couple of ways you can do this. You can either deselect the Vipers like that, you can control click the Corruptors like that, you can control click the Corruptors here, which I can't do right now because what I'm abducting is also a Corruptor. So you do this from max range, run away, and then you have all the time in the world to just select the Corruptors. See how easy that is? Okay, let's get to the questions. When I add on Infestors, I don't know how to micro them. You just use them for neural against Archons. I think that's the easiest. Also, like mostly, if you find a good Fangel, that can also be good, but mostly just use them for neural whenever a unit overextends. How many Corruptors? I think you should try to get at least like 24-ish Corruptors so you can one-shot easily, even if you lose a Corruptor or two. So this is what you should go to first. So if you want to play late game, you want a very high drone count first. Then at first you want to start trading away your Hydras and maybe Roaches that you have for more Corruptor Viper. But you still want a base of, let's say, 12 lurkers to be safe. And then you slowly mass spores while remaking the drones, and way later, once you start to mine out, you don't remake those drones anymore, and that's when you can go to like insane Corruptor counts and more Infestors. But until then, you should just need the lurkers, and then you should have a little bit of a more mobile army, maybe some Ling Bane, or some more Hydra lurker on the side. But you don't really ever need that much, like, you don't need 30 Corruptors for some reason. 22 Corruptors to one-shot a carrier. I think it depends a little bit on the upgrades, but yeah, usually I just get a couple more. I think it's something like that. Yeah, 21, 22, 23. It's a Cannonrush one. We have a Cannonrush one every single time. Okay, so the next replay again is a ZVP. We're looking at Nimzo here, 4.5k, almost 4.6k against Ronnie. My man Ronnie over here. Good old Ronnie. And he said Cannonrush all my hatches into Void Race Pepega. First things first, you can't Cannonrush on this map. This is not a Cannonrush location. If you have problems against this, you could put your Overlord to where your hatchery is. I'm not sure what your Overlord is even looking for right now. Like this, you can hold very easily with drones, first of all. Very easily. But also, if you get cannon rushed on this hatchery, you can cancel and take the other hatch and you're ahead, because like this is just, cannon rushing third base is just bad. What in God's name is this? Why aren't you making a hatchery? Honestly, I would have proxy hatched against this. There's no way he can. So the moment you see this, I probably you could have just taken this hatchery and you would be ahead. Don't get me wrong, but like this is not. I have never seen this before, but without really analyzing too much into this, you can make a hatchery here and start making queens and maybe some spores while going 2 gas Roach. So what you're doing right now imagine with these 700 minerals, there's a hatch going up here. Don't think there is particularly much that your opponent can do. And he will lose all of this as well to Roach Ravager. I mean, I don't even know why there are two cannons here. Also, you can hit these pylons for free with your queen. You'll probably go do that. It's actually free. Man, you needed to make a hatchery. If you wanted to play macro, you needed to make a hatchery. Like, he didn't even... Okay, so first, let's back off a little bit. Send your Overlord to wherever your hatchery is. So you can cancel this earlier, and then you could have sent that drone down here, make the hatchery. And that's cool, right? That's awesome. This Cannonrush also you can theoretically hold with drones, but you don't need to. Like, this is just terrible. Especially because he finished all of them. Once you realize your opponent is way over investing in a Cannonrush, you can probably Roach Ravager Queen them. For example, there are no pylon spots here, right? So let's say you're expanding. You're going hatch first, and your opponent's going for a delayed Cannonrush. And he's making pylon. I mean, I don't think it's possible at all anywhere here to Cannonrush. Maybe pylon. And then he needs to actually finish most of them because you pulled some drones because you're smart. So you force him to finish those. And then he makes 2 cannons. You can finish your hatchery, start 2 queens, run across the map with the 2 queens and Roach Ravager. Nothing you can do. I'm pretty sure. I mean, if he stays on one base, you can re-expand. Like, if he's one base robo, for sure he can hold, but that's a free win too. So those are things you could have done. Let's see what actually happened. Definitely this drone, if you want to macro, should have also taken... Yeah, this took like a little bit too long here. What is he doing? Jesus. He just keeps throwing away minerals. Where is this Overlord coming from? Why is this going here, man? No. No. I've never seen someone be so wasteful with their minerals and with Cannonrushes. Holy crap. You're actually you're fine. If you actually would spend your money, you would be fine. You should make constant queen production. These drones should not be long distance, man. They should be here. You would actually be fine. Never run across the map with the Ravagers. You should have probably checked that there was... I mean, this Cannonrush was actually so awful. Like, actually really awful. But you just never spent your money. You could have actually just made a macro hatchery, and that would have been better than what happened here. Like a one base macro hatch. With 900. And now we're dead. So when you're on one base... I can sense the frustration from these Gs. Let's take a look if you actually inject it. You should definitely inject ASAP with this. Okay, that was 10 energy too late. We're missing it again. So if you're on one base, naturally you should try to get as many injects in as possible. Also, very often I see you guys focus fire pylons instead of cannons, which is bad. But clearing the high ground here first. Like in this case, for example, you should never attack this pylon, just the cannon. And this wasn't cleared up perfectly. This should you should corrosive by these 2 cannons at once. Immediately. Missed the corrosive by there. Corrosive bites are very fast, so you miss an entire corrosive bite already. Again, you should buy both cannons, so you're just biting the right. And this guy is... Look at the resources lost. You're entirely fine if you would be injecting your hatcheries and keep making queens. Like, obviously your opponent is gonna make Void Race, right? First of all, Cannon Rushers do not have actual mechanics, so they always will go Void Race afterwards. Every single replay you guys sent me in is... They follow it up with Void Race, like the macro versions. Let's check the APM of this guy. 100. Like, what do you think he's gonna do with that 100 APM? Do War Prism harass? I don't think so. And every time you get Cannonrush, your Overlord can just scout for free because there is no anti-air until the Stargates are out. So you should not have lost this, obviously, but yeah, it's just a problem of macro. Like this, I'm not sure how useful me analyzing this replay is, because no one will ever Cannonrush you like that again. But every single time a weird Cannonrush happens, it's all about trying to make like logical conclusions as to what the best course of action is. So things that you have to keep in mind is how much is my opponent investing into this Cannonrush, how much, and then what's the most effective way for me to clear this up, and then what is or can I even crush a Cannonrush with the drone pull if it's in a bad position? Which I think this is the thing that you guys most of you are very bad at. A lot of these Cannonrushes are terrible, like this one for example. You could just hold it with drones if you had scouted it. And then how do I follow up? For example, this is a macro Cannonrush, you don't need 2 gas. This guy didn't have a Nexus though, and he walled on the high ground, so going 2 gas is fine. But when I go against a Cannonrush, I always still take a hatchery in case it is a macro Cannonrush. I never just go one base 2 gas. Yeah, there's a anti-Cannonrush replay 2 actually in my next replay pack, so you can check those out. That's my standard response. It pretty much always works. Yeah, there's so much more. Like, you just did a macro, pretty much. Okay, let's see if there are any questions in the chat. What to do against 2 base Immortal Charge Other than you just make Roaches. Roach Ling. Roach Ling Queen. If you macro correctly, even without too much micro, you should be completely fine. I once played versus a Cannonrush into double Stargate. I cancelled the natural and lost because I didn't have enough anti-air. I don't believe you for 1 second. If you cancel your natural and then just re-expand, you look when this guy had his Void Rays on the other side. He has 3 Void Rays right now. 3. Let's say you're playing against a better opponent that's expanding and then going to Stargate Void Ray. You even if you wouldn't remake your hatchery, you should never just die against the Void Rays because you cancelled your hatchery. That is not the issue. I can promise you that much, Danjul. But I have just 2 bases and they're not connected. How do I defend both bases? You connect them. I think you're overstating what your opponent is doing. Like, immediately you start the second queen in the main, and that puts down a creep tumor, goes to the front, start another queen here, start an extra queen here, make a 3rd hatch. Already you have 4 queens before there is even a Stargate unit out. So this replay will be a ZVZ from Marspire. He said, tried splitting army to attack but ended up losing both sides while 2 upgrades behind. Looking for advice on judging Roach vs Roach fights along with general tips. Sure. Okay, this is 4.3k MMR. PoolFirst from the opponent. Let's see your response to PoolFirst. There's a lot of things you can do. I don't think Marisbar even realized yet that there is a PoolFirst. Okay, he did. Did you ever look at the front? Or did you just see the links? Your forces are taking damage. A new queen has it's too fast for me, I can't keep up with this. So you don't need 8 Zerglings like this. One thing that might be a little bit useful for you is if this hatchery finishes around 220 and your opponents are not mind gaming. I don't know why, but I can't scroll for some reason, so I'm gonna need to scroll with this. If this finishes at 220 or around that time, it's usually not the gas variation. If it finishes around 230 or later, it's usually the gas variation. So you can see he went gas, and then took his hatchery very late, right? So his hatchery must have finished around 230, not 220. So if you look at this time with your Overlord, Okay, you saw the links. Also, you don't pull drones against this, ever. You just make Zerglings, and then the Zerglings deal with it. I'm not sure why you're pulling drones. I'm not sure why my mouse scroll is disabled. Nope, still... no clue. Okay, anyways, I'm gonna try to do it like this. So you see this is finishing very late. What you should do right now is not pull the drones. No, not pull the drones. I just start a Baning Nest right away. And you should immediately with one of your first Zerglings run to the other side of the map to get a scout. Preferably with even 2. So you can do a couple of things. The one where you don't need to think, where you don't need to use your brain, which is usually the one that's the easiest to do, is to go 2 base layer if you're good with 2 base layer. The other one is you just pretend that your opponent is not gonna all in you, and you take a third hatch and then a Baning Nest. But then you need to be very good with reactive walling, very good. And then the thing that I would usually do against this timing would be probably to make a Baning Nest. Even if he's going 2 base layer, it's not that terrible. But usually, if he has a real build already, this would not be 2 base layer. So what you're doing right now, I don't think is very good. Like I would think that my opponent was playing gas pull edge. Right? The drone's doing many different weird things in this game. Just watch it from his POV. Okay, so your opponent is faking 2 base layer while going for link pressure, very standard stuff. Your natural should not be ready into your main base until you have 16 workers. So you could be telling right now, because he didn't even start a single upgrade yet, that this is something weird. Even if he went layer first, usually there should already have been an upgrade on the way, so more likely than not there is either a Zergling upgrade or already +1 melee. You can see this in how much gas he spent, right? He spent 200 gas and he still has 100 gas. So if at this moment in time there is no upgrade on the way, you should know that there is Zergling speed. Either with +1 melee, +1 carapace, doesn't really matter, but there's gonna be some sort of Zergling pressure. No clue why there's an Evo chamber here that he doesn't use. This is not good. That was not worth it. I mean, your opponent entirely overreacted, and he's floating 900 minerals right now, so... We're cool. We're cool. In general, you should start your evolution chamber so you can start the upgrade right away if you're playing against 2 base layer. So, your evolution chamber is definitely a lot too late. So already there should be an evolution chamber down. You don't want to fall too far behind in upgrades. You can go +1 carapace or +1 missile, both are fine options. If you make this many Zerglings, +1 carapace probably is better. Having these Zerglings alive is super useful, because it's good against the Ling flat, and if he goes for some type of Roach timing, you can always try to intercept his reinforcements with the Lings. So sacrificing them, I really don't like it, even if you're getting the Roach one. Like if these queens both ever transfuse, which they did. If he transfuses Roach Horn twice, and if he was smart enough to bring his queen down, you would not have killed anything and you would have lost so many Zerglings. So he missed this one transfuse and he didn't bring down the extra queen. And he let a spine finish, which was obviously not good. So in general, I think you misjudged this a little bit. Your macro behind it is okay. So there's a lair and 3 gas. And I guess you decide you're in a fine position to go for 53 drones. That seems okay. Your drone count is good, your upgrades are way too late.
Your forces are under attack.
Usually this is not how you scout with changelings, because then they get caught. Try to drop the changeling here, and then go to the top with the overseer, and then the changeling will more often than not just come through here and scout everything, and you can chill with the overseer here. You will scout everything and your overseer would still be alive, so something you can do different there.
Evolution complete.
Yeah, at the moment you're at 50 plus drones, you should be 4 gas, which is good. With this type of money, I would have started a second Evo chamber as well. Your opponent has 4 Evo chambers. Right, we're up 50 supply. It looks like to me you're going for an all-in. Okay, so now I know what you mean with I split up my army. This is not what I meant with army split up. If you're playing a macro game and you guys both have 66 workers and you guys are both maxed, you can split up your army and then but you're the one that basically gets to decide where to fight. But what you're doing right now is an all-in without upgrades. You also stop drone production. So if you don't want to be committed to this attack, you should probably have gotten a second Evo chamber, overlord speed, this kind of stuff. You know, you do have overlord speed. And then you could have actually just killed him here, I think. There's 2-1 is done. What I would honestly think is the best course of action for you. Like, you're basically have twice as Roach count, but I think the best thing you can do is throw down a Spire, go 6 gas and start a 4th base. The way you know when to take fights is you basically just look at the army. There are no secrets, you literally just look at it and you can see that this is... For example, you see that this is an even armies. If you know you're ahead, that means that... So the way you can play, the way you can pick him, pull him apart is, you know you're ahead. You kite with this army, because if he has an army that's just as big as yours, minus 6 roaches, that means he can't have anything here. So if you pull his army away here, these roaches will get damaged then. And then if he runs back, then this army can run in here or something. You know, that's how you can play. But I mean, I think you just didn't click. Like, I would have engaged here too if I was you, to be honest. If I wasn't aware of the fact that my upgrades are shit. Which I probably would be, because it's relatively late into the game and you just have +1. So you can click your opponent's roaches, you see he has 2-1, you can just not go for the fight. Like, 2-1 roaches against 1-0 roaches is always a landslide. So what you should do is, in this sort of scenario, just throw down a Spire, honestly, that's the best. Because your opponent won't be able to kill you, you have more units than him. And in future, just avoid this by upgrading earlier. And actually going for 52 drones, or 50 drones to 52 drones, with 4 gas. And then just all-inning with +1 is a very legit strat against 2-base lair. If they over-drone at all, you're just gonna kill them because you have way more. But if you wanna go for this all-in push, even though I don't think it should have worked, you just need a concave. Like, I would have probably split my army mostly here, and then reinforcements go here, plus a couple of extra roaches, and then I try to get a concave. Something like this is how I would try to take the fight, without actually splitting up your army. But if you actually want to split up your army, basically wherever you're losing the fight, you pull back, and then you run in on the other side. And focus fire drones, and then you also try to get out, obviously. But yeah, you just lost because your upgrades were too late this game. You also could have kept playing Roach, but then you're not supposed to fight ever until the upgrade advantage stops. So you should have went to 66 drones probably, or at least like 60 drones, 6 gas, and an extra. I'm not sure why you're going 8 gas all of a sudden. But yeah. This replay really just shows how much upgrades are worth. Look, you traded twice as, like, you lost twice as many units as him, and he built the same units as you pretty much. So, okay, do we have any questions about this from MySpy? I think it's pretty straightforward. Once you have, if you're playing against 2-base Larry, your evolution chamber should finish when you have. I mean, you mine too much gas, but let's say you're starting your evolution chamber around the same time as your opponent starts the evolution chamber. So it should be around now usually. And then you start the Roach Horn a little bit late. Making the Zerglings is fine. This is a little bit too many Zerglings, so you don't want to make this many Zerglings against 2-base Lair, because like your opponent could already have been, if this was a good player, could be on 41 drones, have 3 queens here, and you can literally do nothing. I think making up to 18 Zerglings is fine, because it's a little bit harder for him to delay to take his base. So You can overtake him and you can defend a lot of stuff with it as well. So making 18 Zerglings is fine. 24 a little bit too much. Like 18 already is cutting it. How do you like his 12 pool defense? I mean, it was not a 12 pool, so... As I said before, he should not have pulled any drones. This is not when you see... There's... If the Zerglings leave, and you already started two, like... You started the Overlord at 20, which you shouldn't do, by the way. This is not... In Civis, you don't need a 20 Overlord, you make it at 26. From the main base. Anyways, after you start this, so you should be 21 out of 22 right now. If you see the Zerglings right now, it's just a normal PoolFirst. If you see the Zerglings when you're 19 out of 22, before you make the 20th drone, also obviously no 19 Overlord, that's when it's a 12 pool. If you see it slightly later, it's a 13-12. And if you see it this late, it's a 16 pool. So you should have known this was a normal PoolFirst. And you don't need to... like, these drones should be mining right now. There's absolutely no reason. You're not defending anything here. You're even just endangering the drones. Alright, so... This week we have a 4th replay because our Pepega King of the Week also sent in a replay himself. So he... sent in a ZVT, so we actually have all matchups today. Against against Baby Marine, so Rainer's little brother. This is 4.9k MMR against Baby Marine. It's usually a little bit higher. He's at 5k, but I think Baby Marine already has been a little bit higher than that, if I'm not mistaken. I played against his off-race a couple times with my Terran. He even took a map of Mana at the last DPT Cup. This is not an Overlord pattern. What are you scouting for? CC, double CC and 3rd CC on location or what? Alright, we killed a Reaper for free. Yeah, this is not how you send your Overlord, so you will die against any proxy Rex. I also don't like having 2 Overlords on the other side of the map against Terran. I don't think it's useful unless you go Overlord speed, which this is not the case. This is a good move. Guys, if you kill a Reaper right away, do what Mechanics does here and just walk across the map. You will get a scout off. If your opponent's not watching out, you might even lose the Marine, which is huge because then your Overlord can run in and get free scouting. Also, don't stay too long. He stayed too long. Yeah, this was bad. 4 Zerglings are basically 2 drones in the early game. Because you need to remake them now against a potential alien run by, so that was not good. But we are going over the speed, okay. If you go Overlord speed, don't sack your Overlord. Overlord speed is very expensive. The only reason it's worth it is because you don't actually lose an Overlord unless your opponent's going Viking. Because if you're going Overlord speed, you have less queens already than usual. So you can't afford using Overlords. And you certainly don't need 3 Overlords on your other side of the map. If you have Overlord speed with 2 Overlords, you will always get full scouting from it. Okay, we're mismarking a little bit here with the laser Overlords as well. But I can understand it. If you lose an Overlord, sometimes you're not sure how many you get on the way. It's actually almost fine. Let's not be too hard on this one. Okay, your opponent is doing something very weird. He's 2-basing. This looks almost like a TVP builder. Okay, he's just now making the 3rd CC. A little bit too late. Wait. You scouted, it was Banshee, you have 0 spores? There can be a Cloak Banshee here already. I know you have a lair, but that's not how it works. You need a... Please make a spore per base. If you scout Banshee, please, please, please. Oof. I'm just watching. You're so lucky that the Banshees were so late. Banshees could have arrived way earlier. Nice. You also don't need to send all your queens to on Banshee duty. But that's not the worst. I think the way you droned up was not very efficient. So for example, why is... Like, this is some... how is some Zerg rallies here? We have 14 out of 16. 11 out of 6 with 2 gases on the way. 1 gas here. And we're rallying our main and natural right now to our third base that has 21 drones out of 16 with also 2 gas on the way. So first of all, I think you should take a second gas first. And if you don't want to do that, you go 1 gas and then 3 gas. But you don't go 1 gas and then 6 gas, that's not very clean. It also won't allow you to start any of this. You can't start double upgrades in a building. That's like you need some gases a little bit earlier than this. Like if it's just a second gas, that's fine. What is the drones are running everywhere? Oh my god, what am I watching? What is going on? Why are they switching sides? This is fucking Hearthstone's offers all over again. This actually is driving me crazy just watching this. Okay, I'm not gonna even... I will make a Zerg Academy video about this at some point. This is high mastery, guys. High masters. So... You're actually in a really good spot. And then you do this. Yeah, that doesn't work. Only ever try to surround Hellions off creep if you are sure that you're gonna get the surround. Preferably if you already have Zerglings from behind. This was not good. Not good. Okay, we're saturated now at least. Okay, now you stop looking at them. Man, you just lost so much against these aliens. You just lost the game to the aliens, pretty much. You're actually still fine. Because your opponent played a weird build on himself. So the moment you lose your 4th touch, by the way, you'll make a monk rush or take a 5th touch as well at the same time. If you're on 66 drones, otherwise you're not going to be able to spend your money. So you should probably be making a monk rush right now. Oh, that hurt to watch. Okay, so I actually mentioned this during my last video. But if you're harassing with mutas, make sure you have all your mutas together. And then you hotkey your reinforcement mutas with your Zerglings, so this doesn't happen. And when your mutas are harassing here, which they would have literally won you the game if these mutas were together and then harassed, because there are no turrets. Actually, there is a turret here and here, but no turrets here. So the moment your mutas are coming back home, you can greet them with the rest of their muta family, and then you can get them together again, and then do the same over and over again. But you don't just rally your mutas to wherever you're harassing with the mutas. So you don't also hotkey your muta cocoons with your already existing muta head squad. Are we doing it now? Yes. Nice. I like it. Oof. Hello? Okay, so then this was also not good. Preferably you should come from if you want to come from behind with something, it should be Ling Bane. Never come from behind with the mutas. The mutas should come from the same side as the banelings, unless there is something exposed that you want to snipe off in the backline. Because if you come from behind with the mutas, the marines will automatically target the mutas while they're stutter stepping back, which is absolutely not what you want. Also, if you have the mutas here on the same side, you crush this fight entirely, because you can focus fire not only the mine before it shoots, you have enough mutas for that. Okay, you do have order speed. So you could focus fire the mine, but then also you kill the tanks, which was a big issue here in this fight. But first of all, these mutas are not doing anything. But you can then move command the banelings forward, or move commanding here a little bit. The tanks will die immediately, so then the tanks won't get so many extra shots in. Which is what really hurt you. And you lost like 4 extra mutas. 5, 6. You lost 6 mutas there just because you didn't micro correctly. So it's not a it's not a move, guys. It's not a move. Like you could have a moved this fight, but it's not actually a move. I hope this makes sense. If you a moved it correctly, definitely would have crushed the fight. Okay, we again have reinforcing mutas running through turrets. Okay, so okay, a couple of things. First, and this is one thing. Make a second gas earlier. You can thank me later for that. Just make it in your main base, especially because of the way you're rallying, so you don't. I'm not even gonna look at the rallying part again. Please learn that. I will make a video on it, so until then you're excused. That was the second part. Then, I mean, creep spread and stuff can always be better, but that was not really the main issue. Try to always get a concave with fights, and then also try to engage with the mutas from the same side as your main army. Don't chase aliens off creep. Was a big part. We also do not have overlord spread, I believe. No. Make a spore in time, please, for banshees. This was 2 CC banshee, in which case your spores. I'm not even sure anymore when you started the spores, but definitely not in time. Like 440 latest. Latest, you should start the spores. Cloak is done in 30 seconds. Cloak is done right now. While your queens are here. Yeah. So, yeah. I don't want to look at it. I do not want to look at it. And then, oh right, the other thing is get a macro edge once you realize you can't spend your money. If you ever lose or forfeit your fourth base, if you have a clean early game, I think already you should be taking another base here as well. I think that will help you. I don't think you're actually gonna regret that ever. Because this one you took relatively late. So against Banshee sides, for example, you can either make a macro edge or get this hatchery here. Because you're lacking larva the moment you lose this. But yeah, the main reason you lost honestly was because of the fights you took here and then not having Bane ready a couple of times. Was not great. Obviously your opponent also did some nice multitasking. Wow. So yeah, also you guys can just leave 2 queens with an overseer on Banshee duty. This makes it a lot easier, so because I saw you running back and forth all the time with all your crew queens, so that didn't help. Anyways, a lot of points there you can improve upon. So let's see if they're... Yeah, Bane is 5.4k plus, yeah. Are there any questions? Any questions in the chat? When do I add the second and the third gas? Let's say you're going 2 gas. The easiest way for you to do it is right before it inject pops, you take a second gas, like right here. So you could be taking gas right now, but this is a little bit early in the next inject. So let's say right now you're taking a second gas in your main base. You're not supply blocked. And then you just rally the 3 of the drones that spawn here into the gas in the main base. I think that's what I would suggest. Probably. You can latest do it right now at this inject. But usually like this is already too late. In this scenario right now what I would suggest would be take a gas in your main and 1 in the natural, or if you want to do it super easy, you rally this to the natural, this to the natural, take 2 gases here. This is an absolute disaster. So basically the timing of which you want to take your gases is so you constantly have 16 on the mineral line. You don't want to be oversaturated anywhere. And just you need a second or 2-3 gas a little bit earlier so you can afford all this stuff. But it pretty much is just You want to be 16, 16, 16 the entire time, and then the extra drones that come out need to go somewhere on the gas. That's pretty much how the early game works. Should we have transitioned to a different comp already? No, absolutely not. Ling Muta was good. I mean, this game didn't even go late, so you don't need to transition out of Ling Muta, Ling Hydra, or anything like that ever until your opponent has a lot of bases. Like 4 base plus is what we're talking, and maxed out armies. And even then you can stay on Ling Muta theoretically. So army composition was definitely fine.